Hey there, students. Going to talk to you a little bit about tariffs, specifically the difference between a revenue tariff and a protective tariff, which is very important for students taking U.S. history courses, especially over the first half of U.S. history, because this is something that is the main source of revenue for the United States government, even through the Progressive era until the passage of the 16th Amendment, which legalized the income tax. So as far as that goes, let's get into that. And speaking of U.S. history students, let's give a quick shout out to Vanessa and Becca at Taft High School. Hope your soccer team and your dance team continue to do great. So let's go on. Now, first of all, two types of tariffs or duties. Now, the Constitution uses the word duties, which is not really current as far as what we use, but then again, anytime you go to an international airport, you see the duty-free store where they've got a lot of sunglasses, liquor, chocolate, and various other things that you don't have to pay taxes because you're going across international lines. So they're outside of anyone's jurisdiction. So duty free. You're not having to pay a tariff or a duty on here. So remember, anytime you see either one of those words, we're talking about a tax on imports. Okay. So what a revenue tariff and a protective tariff have in common is that they are both taxes on imports. Now, a revenue tariff is for money. A revenue tariff is just to collect money for the government or tax revenue. Okay. So it's really self-defining. It's not that hard, but a lot of students have trouble with it. So a revenue tariff is about collecting tax revenue and funding the government. Now, a protective tariff, it has a different intent. It's about protecting American industry or whatever country. If you're watching from another country, I'm honored. Okay, this can actually apply anywhere because what we see here with this tiger, if you try to take that bone away from the tiger, that's not going to work too well, is it? So as far as that goes, this is about protecting native jobs, native industry, and really has very little to do, even though technically it is a tax on imports, it is a little bit manipulative because its true purpose is not to raise money for the government, but to protect native industry. So, very quickly, on a graphic organizer, a revenue tariff is intended to fund the government with no ulterior motive. That is the only purpose. Whereas a protective tariff is intended to protect domestic industry and to discourage imports. Now, that's why protective tariffs were especially controversial in early U.S. history because the United States was a primarily agricultural economy. And the people who were advocates of protective tariffs, they wanted to do so in order to develop native industry. So when you think about Alexander Hamilton in the founding generation and then Henry Clay in the antebellum generation, that's what you're looking at there. So there's this constant tension over should the tariff be for revenue only or should we have a protective tariff? And I'll get into that controversy a little more in another video, but for right now, I just want to make sure that you know what these tariffs are. So a revenue tariff, fund the government, create tax revenue. A protective tariff, protect domestic industry and actually discourage imports and discourage foreign trade. And so the difference is, again, in the intent. And I'll get into the constitutionality of protective tariffs in another lecture. So for right now, hopefully you enjoyed that and you got something out of it and you'll never forget that again. It's always a pleasure.